Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner Davis.
Yes, we are live.
We are that. We are live. We're here.
How's everybody?
Everything is good, Brother Ever. How are you?
Right. So tonight's question. Look, well, I don't know. We'll find out, right? Because we want to know right now if our citizens are ready for this hurricane. It's going to be one, I believe. I've been looking at it appears as we're in for it, especially water with the rain and the flooding. So, but we've got someone who can tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, I don't know if he's a weatherman, but he can tell us about preparation. I don't want to put him and preparedness, preparation, and things we should.
So, Brother Elliot, your connection has slowed down.
We'll just see. So, yeah, okay. I don't know what to do about that.
Just close all the windows on your computer and if you have any other ones open, all your browser windows might give you a little bit more power.
Right.
Okay. So here with us tonight is Adam Emrick. He's the city administrator for the city of Conway, South Carolina. And Adam is joining us tonight to talk about preparedness strategies that the city is implementing in order to make sure that everything stays intact in the wake of the pending storm. So as you all know, we have Tropical Storm Debby that is kind of skirting the coast. She's hanging out a little bit for whatever reason, taking her sweet time, coming up the coastline, and that's not really a good thing because it means that she has the potential to become a much more powerful storm than she is. And so, as we take into consideration all that is in the wake of the storm, we have to consider that there's going to be torrential rain, there's going to be flooding, and a few other things, high winds that usually come with the storms. And we're all coastal residents, so we're kind of used to storms, but you never really get used to storms. And so it's kind of like what Adam and I were talking about right before we went live, that we're always looking for a hurricane, but in a kind of a twisted way, we're ready and excited, but we're not really ready for a hurricane. So it's really crazy. Adam's going to come on now. Hey, Adam.
Hi there. How you doing?
All right. And kind of give us some information about what the city of Conway is doing to make sure that residents are ready, and some things that he wants to share with you. So, Adam, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back on the show. So, we've have a lot of experience with hurricanes and flooding, especially in Conway. And although that's not something that we like to boast about, it is something we're pretty good at. And, I think the goal of the city is to have, we know we're going to have hurricanes, right? I mean, that's a reality of where we live. And I think you mentioned that just a second ago. And with that, we know we're going to have flooding. So what we need to do is become more resilient, more hardened with the infrastructure that we have, with the readiness that we have, so that we can be a city that can flood and have the smallest amount of impact on our community as possible. And I really think we're poised in a very good position for that in Conway. And mostly that is because of the experience that we have with the number of flooding events that we've had over the last decade.
Yes. And so, Adam, as you all take a look at the metrics for what's happening with this storm, obviously you're monitoring it closely and you're trying to figure out, greatest impacts, lowest impacts, and all that good stuff. What is it that you've determined as far as how ready Horry County is for this particular storm?
I can't speak to all of Horry County, but I can speak to Conway. So I can tell you that we do annual practice drills on disasters, and we do it every year. We actually just did it 3 weeks ago, and we change what disaster we model each time. We've done tornadoes, we've done mass casualty events, we've done, I don't know if we've done an earthquake yet or not, but we always do hurricanes, ice storms. And what it does is, as a staff, we are ready for pretty much any scenario that is thrown our way. I know that we model a tornado hit, I think 3 years ago, and then that year there was tornadoes elsewhere in the state, and we were able to look and see if our response that we had would have worked in that scenario. We don't ever want a disaster to hit us, but the fact that they're inevitable for communities, and they're likely and more likely each year. I think the fact that we actually model what's going to happen, we run through scenarios, we run through them with our department heads. What if they're not available? We run through them with their second and staff. Then we run it through with the third and staff and see what responses we get to make sure that everybody is prepared for any eventuality. And with flooding, it's something, like I said, we're pretty experienced with. So we have a checklist of what we do before a storm comes, what we do during a storm, and what we do immediately following a storm, and then what we do 2-3 weeks out after a storm. And we're running through that checklist now. And wind is a wild card with storm events, but flooding is pretty routine. And I hate to say that, it sounds so dark, but it is. There's a system to it, and we sort of know what areas are going to flood and what we can do to respond to make them better.
Mm. So speaking of the flooding, what flooding prep has happened since the last major storm? Like, was there anything that you all did after the last major storm to make sure that you were prepared for, even events that might not be as large as the last major storm?
Yeah, so I think actually the last time I was on your show, we were talking about the buyout program that we were doing, which started in 2016. So if you remember, Hurricane Matthew hit us in 2016. And within weeks of that event, we had brought in a consultant and started an application to FEMA to start a buyout program for repetitive loss properties. So properties that we knew were in the most harm's way from potential flooding. So, around Trinity United Methodist Church, we had a lot of properties there that flooded in Hurricane Floyd in 1999. They flooded in 2015 with Joaquin. They flooded again in 2016 with Matthew. And then, unfortunately, 2 years later, they flooded a fourth time in 2 decades with Hurricane Florence. We have not had any more flooding in that area since Hurricane Florence, but that is only 6 years ago. It's certainly something that we know is an area that is probably the most susceptible to flood loss in our area. And so the buyout program focused largely on that area, but we opened that buyout program to anyone in a flood zone in the city. And that was very successful to remove homes from harm's way. And it worked in a way that was not a budget breaker for the city. It was not a budget breaker for the community residents who had the ability to be able to sell their properties. And it removed 42 properties from harm's way. It's 42 less doors we had to knock on. It's 42 less homes we have to visit with our public safety if there's a flash flood event. It's 42 less families that their lives are going to be disrupted if there's a future flood. If there's a flood from this event, that's 42 less, families that are impacted by that event. And that is the single biggest thing that I think we've done to help us be more resilient in flooding. Now, we've done a lot of things on the public side too. We've hardened our Riverfront Park. If you remember in 2015, we had there are rocks that run the entire length of Riverfront Park on the bank. Mm-hmm. Those rocks are called riprap, and riprap is a way to make the land not erode during a storm. So when the floodwaters come up, they start rushing faster. The rock hardens that wall of the peninsula of Riverfront Park. In 2015 and 2016, we lost nearly all of the riprap on Riverfront Park, about $250,000 worth of rock. So we were debating what to do, whether we're going to send summer employees into the river to throw the rocks back on the shore, or what we're going to do to be able to restore that when 2018 came and knocked it out again. So what we did after 2018 is we planted over 100 cypress and redwood trees along that bank of Riverfront Park. So instead of relying upon rocks that aren't native to the area, we planted what is the native erosion control on the banks of a river, and that's cypress trees. Cypress trees will grow with the roots and hold the soil in, and they throw up the cypress knees, which create that buffer almost like a rock would do. And it's a natural way to harden the infrastructure. So those trees have been, they're first of all, they're beautiful. We lost one tree of the 100 and some we planted, just because of, you plant a bunch of trees, usually you lose a few. We only lost one. So not only is it beautiful, not only do we lose a few, they are now in place and have been for almost 5 years. That's going to stop the erosion on that side of the bank, and it's doing it the way nature would do it.
So
as you know, yeah, that's right. It also drinks up water when we have flooding, and it provides shade to lessen some of that. We have electrical in Riverfront Park. We lost that in 2015 when it flooded. We lost it in 2016 when it flooded. We lost it again in 2018. After 2018, we said we're not doing things the same way we've always done. We're going to do it to expect a flood every year. And so we made all of the electrical removable in Riverfront Park. So yesterday, my crews were out removing all of the electrical connections in Riverfront Park. After the flood waters recede, we'll put them right back in. And that way we've lessened the impact to our infrastructure and the cost to the community to replace these things, and the burden on our city staff to have to go back in and do that. So it's just a small step of resilience, but it's something that we've learned our lesson. The playground at Riverfront Park is 100% flood proof. There are two little pieces we had to remove today to make them that way, but they were gone now. And everything in Riverfront Park can withstand floodwaters, withstand 30 days of standing water if necessary. Knock on wood that it's not, but that's what we're expecting in that park. We've removed buildings of our own. Fireman's Clubhouse, was at the Riverfront. Those events. Yeah. We said no more. We took it down in 2019. So it's gone. So that's one less building that we know will flood, one less building to have to do repairs on and have damage to. It's unfortunate that we lost a historic structure like that on the bank of the river, but it was not the right place for it. It was not built to the climate that we have today, and so it had to be removed. We removed the Riverfront Tennis Center for the same reason. We cannot continue to do the same thing and think something's going to change with the climate that we're in. And so we changed the way we do things in Conway, and that was intentional. We rebuilt the lift station, the sewer lift station at Riverfront Park, to be higher and be the ability to withstand any sort of flooding event that happens. And it's ready, it's online, it's ready to go. And that's, again, one small thing that we've done. But when you look at all those small things together, they make a big impact. We planted weeping willow trees along Crabtree Canal. Weeping willow trees suck up a lot of water, and we didn't just plant one; we planted hundreds of them. Again, a small thing to do that can make an impact as you put them all together. And I think the largest thing we've done is not something that you'll see yet. We have 3 stormwater projects. 2 of them are grant funded. One of them is reliant upon FEMA permits that we're waiting for the buyout to be completed. And all 3 of those will be along Crabtree Canal. All 3 of those will build facilities to hold more water prior to the water getting into Crabtree, holding millions of gallons of water before it gets into Crabtree Canal, which will reduce some of the flash flooding impacts in that community. They're not done yet. Chestnut Bay, which will be a man-made Carolina Bay, something we think we're the first ones to do anywhere. That will hold 7 million gallons of water. It's grant funded. It's about a $4.5 million project. It's in engineering right now. Adjacent to that is the McKeithen Outfall project. It's behind the old school on Sherwood. It'll do this very similar thing. We're not building a bay there. We're building a lake, but it'll be about a 20-acre lake that will hold water. And it'll be an area that was upland before that now we're converting into wetland to hold more water. It's also in engineering. Both of those projects we hope to have completed in 2 or 3 years' time, and that will hold an enormous amount of water. And then the third project is called Hawthorne Park right now. It's on the backside of Crabtree in an area that we bought a bunch of FEMA properties and tore them down. It'll hold water. We're restoring wetlands. We're basically taking water that's going through pipes right into the canal, and we're dumping it out into a lake that we're building to hold water. So we're re-engineering the way the water works in that area so that we're slowing it down before it gets into Crabtree, we're cleaning it, and we're storing it. And we're hoping that those three projects in their own way will reduce flash flooding in that community. And then we hope to continue to replicate this all the way up Crabtree, where we have the biggest area of flash flooding.
So your retention lakes and ponds, what's the durability? What's the capacity there in terms of 50, 25-year storm, 50, 100-year storm? What is it made for?
Well, it's made for I can't answer that easily. Number one, it's not done yet, so we're still doing the engineering work, so I can give you that answer.
But it's part of planning. I mean, you should plan.
That is part of the planning. Right? The overall goal of all three projects is to address today, where we are right now. We have a storm on the horizon. We know we're going to get 4 or 5 inches of rain in a very short amount of time. And tomorrow we may get 10 inches of rain in a short amount of time. And all of the water right now runs through a pipe directly into Crabtree Canal. Crabtree Canal then overflows its bank and runs right back into the neighborhoods that the pipe was collected in. It also backs up the stormwater, and water starts coming out of our stormwater collection areas. So we'll have ditches hundreds of feet away from water that are filling, and no one can figure out why. It's because everything is backing up in the system. What this will do is remove large sections of that pipe and empty it out into a bay or a lake or a pond, spread it out, and then let it flow controlled into Crabtree. It won't stop it from getting into Crabtree, but it'll slow it down. So, a 25-year event, I think, will be an easy sale. It'll be easy to hold all that water. Talk about a 50, 100, a 200, or 1,000-year event. There is no infrastructure that can hold that amount of water. All we can hope to do is slow it down so that the immediate impact in a flash flood is lessened, and it can help mitigate some of the dangers in these neighborhoods.
So just to give our viewers a view of a more cautious view of what it would be like if these mitigation or these flood mitigation measures were not in place. For example, down at the at Riverfront, what would it look like? Would it encompass all of Main Street if these measures were not in place?
Well, there's two types of flooding, and I think it's important to be able to separate those. When you see flooding during an event or immediately following an event, that's typically flash flooding. And that doesn't necessarily come from the river. That comes from the watersheds that lead into the river. So all of the projects I just talked about, as far as the big infrastructure projects, are along Crabtree Canal. That's where the flash flooding occurs. Around Main Street, Main Street is flash flooding event, and it becomes a riverine flooding event, which is the second type of flooding, when the river backs up. So there are 5 rivers that flow into Winyah Bay. Waccamaw River that runs through Conway is one of those rivers. And I'm not a hydrologist, and I don't understand why this is, but the Waccamaw River is the river of lowest priority for draining. It's the last one to drain. So if the Petey River or the Little Petey River are in flood stage, that actually will back the Waccamaw up. So the Waccamaw can be not at flood stage. We can have no rain in the Waccamaw or the Waccamaw Basin. The Petey River's flooding, and the Waccamaw River can flood. So it pushes water back up all the way from Winyah Bay, all the way back through Conway in the Waccamaw. And that's what we saw in Florence. We saw sort of an equalization. We had water running from Lake Waccamaw in North Carolina down through Conway. So we had swelling of the river north of us. And then we had pushback from the Winyah Bay back from the south up, and we hit this kind of equalization stage of the river where it could not drain. And that's where we were in Hurricane Florence for almost a month, with standing water of an enormous magnitude for just day after day after day. And that caused the most amount of damage. So that is riverine flooding. And that is the one that is the most difficult to control. We have no plan for that. What our plan for that is just to make sure there's not people living in the area where the river will back up, and make sure that we don't have anything that is expensive to replace in those areas when the river backs up. It will back up. It's backed up a number of times, not just in the storms we've mentioned. In 2020, people forget, before COVID was a thing, in January of 2020, we had the 6th worst flood in the history of Conway. And it was not as a result of a hurricane. It was just a flood that backed up from other rivers being backed up. and there was not one bit of damage. We had no public property damage, no private property damage in the city. It was a bad flood that didn't cause any problems. And that's what we want every flood to be. We know we're going to flood. We just hope we can make it so it's mitigated as much as possible. And so that's why this conversation is important prior to a hurricane hitting, so that we can help property owners and folks that live in the community mitigate their damages as well.
So Adam, of course, a lot of what you talked about are the properties that probably skirt most of the waterways of the areas that are closest to, like, your rivers and things like that. But what about those residents who are, I guess you can call them inner city, and they may deal with drainage issues, city drainage issues? Are there any measures in place that the city, has I guess kind of created a strategy for, to make sure that the city drainage is proper for this type of a storm?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, we constantly maintain our stormwater system, whether that be ditches or pipes or culverts or whatever. We're constantly doing work on those things. But on the eve of a storm, so we had folks coming in on Saturday and Sunday, coming in and cameraing every stormwater pipe, basin, every drainage piece in the city to make sure there were no clogs or no issues. And then yesterday and today, they've been working around the clock to correct any of those issues. A lot of what we see are not pipes that are clogged or not pipes that are not maintained, but things that get in the pipes that aren't supposed to be there. Basketballs, bricks, concrete, construction debris, pine straw, even like yard debris. If you think about it, when you've done maintenance on your yard and you put that at the curb for us to come pick up, if we've got a windstorm or a rainstorm and that stuff washes into the street, it's going to wash into a basin and clog it. So it's important that we're able to get that out. We could maintain the system 100% every single day, which we do, and still have that sort of thing happen during a storm. And like today, we had all the rain. I guarantee you there are pipes that are clogged today that were not clogged yesterday because of some of that. So we're running around doing a lot of that work during the storm. Our stormwater department is in the middle of every of this event. So if the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour and you're hunkered down and the storm's blazing, our guys are out there on the street trying to make sure that our drains are clean. So if you see some stormwater, so you see an area that's backing up that shouldn't be, that's when you need to call into the city and say, hey, I've got an issue. I need someone to come take a look at it. Because we can come out right away. Sometimes it's just as easy as clearing the top of a drainage basin, free up the debris, and the water will drain immediately back into the system it's supposed to be in. And we can stop there from being a damage in an area that shouldn't have damage.
Mm-hmm. Are there any collaborative efforts with other organizations or agencies that tend to watch flooding or even, the weather conditions whenever storms like this are on the horizon?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm sitting in our emergency operations center. It's in our public safety building on 9th Avenue. We've had a small crew here all day. We had a council meeting last night. We activated the EOC this morning, and we'll be back here at the crack of dawn tomorrow unless something happens overnight, and then we'll be coming in overnight. And we'll ramp that operation up as we go. The county has a very similar operation that they have, used to be at the ML Brown building. Now they have the new facility out by the jail. And we'll send a representative to their EOC to make sure if they hear anything that we need to know about or vice versa, that we have that communication channel open. That's a really vital piece of this because we work every day during a storm event, not just with the county, but we work with the state. We work with the National Weather Service. We work with all the other municipalities. If there is a problem in North Myrtle Beach that we need to send help to, we will send help to them. They did the same thing to us during Hurricane Florence or the aftermath. We had, I think, 2 or 3 garbage trucks from North Myrtle Beach running routes for us because we had so much debris we just could not keep up. And that was so important to be able to have, that sort of relationship with our neighboring cities and our county and the Solid Waste Authority and all those folks, is to be able to have that. We've got each other's back. And we really do coordinate during the event, make sure that if we're doing something that is working, that they have the ability to follow that lead and vice versa. So yes, we work very closely with all of the agencies that are doing the same sort of storm prep. And I would caution everybody, I know you've heard this other sources, but we get our information on weather directly from the National Weather Service, directly from the Hurricane Center there. And it's without editorial. So they tell us exactly what to expect. And we rely on that data to make the decisions that we make. And I'm not discounting our local news media, but it's a different kind of information that we follow. We don't need it to be right. We just need it to be as the best information as possible.
Mm-hmm. So Adam, based on that information that you just gave us, what can we expect in, I guess, Horry County, on the coast or whatever, as far as the latest report from the National Weather Service?
So we had an update at 6:30, and let me give you this caveat. It's the same caveat they would give you. This storm has changed 3 times today. It changed yesterday. So even the update at 6:30 was different than the update at 2 o'clock. So expect this thing to change overnight. Right now, it is moving very, very slowly across land, which is good for us because it's slowing the storm down. It's depleting it of a lot of its resources. It's taking a lot of the moisture out of the system. Once it gets back over the ocean, it's going to replenish, and it could reform and strengthen. I think that's the biggest fear, is it goes back over the ocean overnight. It gathers a bunch of steam. It becomes more of an organized system, and then it comes right through Myrtle Beach and hits us. It hits us with a lot of wind. It hits us with a lot of rain, and it just slowly moves through our area like Hurricane Florence did.
Mm-hmm.
So the wind of Hurricane Matthew with the rain of Hurricane Florence and the slow-moving disaster that was, that's worst-case scenario. So I think that's what we're fearful of. That's what we're prepared for. That's what we're anticipating. The 6:30 update was a little more optimistic than it had been all day because of the slow moving of it is right now over land. It is sort of becoming a little bit less organized, and it's slowing down a little bit. So the thought right now is when it comes ashore tomorrow, we're probably going to get tropical storm force winds. Those may start overnight. So you're looking at 35 to 55 mile an hour winds that could start tonight, that could blow all day tomorrow, that could blow all day Thursday and into Thursday night. So that is a much longer period of wind than we normally get with a hurricane. Hurricane Matthew was in and out in 12 hours. Hurricane Joaquin was in and out in 10 hours. Florence, on the other hand, was through here for 3 days without wind, but with a lot of rain. So if we get the rain that, we're looking at somewhere between 10 and 20 inches of rain from this storm. If that is above 20, we're in trouble. If it's below 10, we're probably okay. I'm looking at some cameras right now of Crabtree Canal at Sherwood. It is up to the bottom of the bridge, but Sherwood is open. Sherwood is one of those roads that closes normally during a flash flood event. So it's still open. It'll probably close tomorrow. I can see Crabtree right now behind the Rock Church. It's back in its banks. It was over its banks for a bit today, but it's back down in there, which is good. It's giving us a period to get that water flushed out into the river. When that comes back up, our goal number 1 is to keep it out of the rock. We don't need the church flooding again. Goal number 2, keep it out of the road. We need the road. We need Church Street open. We can't function as a city if our major arteries are closed. And unfortunately, that's what happens when we flood. We lose Church Street. We lose Main Street. Sometimes we lose 378. When those roads go down, it's the end of business as usual in Conway. And so those are the goals. I can't remember your question, April. I get going and I just keep going. I'm sorry.
You're doing a fine job. I'm just kind of piggybacking on, some of the things that you're sharing with us. And I'm glad that you kind of gave a contextual landmark to Crabtree with the Rock Church, because now everybody can kind of visualize, the area that you're talking about. And
let me expand on that. It runs from El Bethel behind Walmart. Okay. It runs all the way behind Walmart, behind the Rock Church. It crosses over at Mill Pond. It runs behind the Circle K gas station. It runs over to Main Street and crosses Main Street between the Speedway and Blackwoods Nursery there, Backwoods Nursery. And then it runs all the way out behind Trinity Church, and then it becomes part of Kingston Lake, circles around, and goes back into the Waccamaw River there. So it's a long system, and there are a lot of other swamps that feed into it. Okie Swamp is part of Crabtree at the kind of the western edge of 378. Okie Swamp runs from basically El Bethel Road to Juniper Bay in that area, all the way out through there. You've got Altman Branch, which runs from the Sandridge community up through behind Rosehaven and Newcastle subdivision, and that all ends up feeding into Crabtree. So you've got all these other feeder streams that run into Crabtree, which cause it to swell. And depending on where the rain falls, that's where the flash flooding can occur as these branches feed into Crabtree and cause it to overflow its boundaries. And so the key is to keep Crabtree flowing as long as we can and keep it going in the positive direction into the river. And that allows it to drain, even if it takes a couple of days to drain. That keeps the flash flooding at bay. It's when it starts backing up for whatever reason, and then it becomes a problem.
Okay. What about areas that we typically hear of that flood, like Port Harrelson and the Sedgefield area and all that? I don't know how far the city boundaries extend as far as what you all do, and then maybe the county takes over. But can you give us any insight on what happened or may happen in that area?
Sedgefield and Pecan Grove are sort of the southern boundaries today as far as developed land is in Conway. We did just annex a large chunk on the other side of Pitch Landing, and it's not developed right now, and the drainage is not in place on that right now, so it is still raw land. But Sedgefield and Pecan Grove, when it floods, what happens is I think it's Bear Swamp comes right through there beside there. Bear Swamp does the same thing that Crabtree does. It cannot get into the Waccamaw River fast enough. So it overflows its banks. It comes up to New Road and gets the houses on the backside of New Road. It comes up and kind of skirts around Sedgefield and joins the large retention pond that separates Pecan Grove and Sedgefield. And so that pond just keeps swelling into those communities. So when there is flooding in Pecan Grove and there's flooding in Sedgefield, it's as a result of Bear Swamp joining the retention pond there in the middle, and there's just no more room for the water to go. Lake Busby, which is right there,
I was going to ask about that.
4 feet higher than the river. So it only functions to hold the water that falls into it. It doesn't function to hold any other water because it's too high. So the water from Pecan Grove can't get into Lake Busby until the water level's 4 feet higher than it is to begin with, which is bad. We don't want that. We want it to be down low. So it does not serve as any sort of retention pond for the city except for the water that's falling in it, which is just surface water. The areas that really work to hold water are the areas of conservation along the Waccamaw River and along Crabtree that we've been slowly acquiring with our other partners like the Nature Conservancy. We actually just acquired a parcel, I think we just acquired it from the Ricefield, Historic Ricefields Association. They bought a large parcel of land for conservation, and they've given it to us. We've worked with the American Rivers Association to acquire raw, undeveloped land along the river and keep it that way. Right now, more than 30% of the city's total land area is in conservation, and the majority of that conservation property is along the Waccamaw River. Its goal is to stay wooded and pristine and hold water when it storms. That's its only goal. Waccamaw River Park, right along Highway 501 Business, it's been closed all week. We closed it before the storm got here. Its primary purpose is to hold water. Primary purpose is not recreation of that park. It's to hold water. So when we have flood events, it closes the park and it becomes a retention area, and that's what it's for. It's great to have the luxury of having it open to the public when it's dry, but that's not the purpose that it was bought to serve. And that property, I think we purchased with Nature Conservancy money. They're a fantastic partner. They've been with us, for a lot of this, and they fully understand what we're trying to do and what the best method is nature doing its job.
So Adam, look, what can be done? Because this 501 bridge that leads from over into Conway, that goes over Lake Busby, that part, that seemed to be the most impactful for all of Conway, and because you can't leave Myrtle Beach to get into Conway. People from Conway can't leave Conway in order to take care of business, right across the bridge. So what structurally has been planned or has been introduced to the city for kind of mitigating the impact of a 501 stoppage like that again? Can you do something? Can you structurally do something with the bridge? I know it's going to be expensive, but just some exploratory schemes have been brought up, I'm sure.
I think the one thing that's important to know is there are 6 bridges across the Waccamaw River in Horry County, and just 6. The 501 bypass bridge that you're talking about there at Lake Busby right. is the southernmost bridge. There is not a bridge going south for 35 miles. So we're decades behind the curve on bridges across the Waccamaw River. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. Cost is the biggest one. Yeah. Environmental impact is probably the second biggest one. It right now will take 20 to 25 years to build a bridge.
Wow.
And a lot of that is permitting. So it's not just the coming up with the funding for it. You still got to go through all the permits to build one. So we need more bridges across the Waccamaw. And so there was, I don't know if you followed the Ride 4 discussions at the county or the transportation sales tax that's going to be on the ballot in November. And I can't legally advocate for that one way or the other, but I can tell you what's on it and why it's important to Conway. There are 2 bridges across the Waccamaw in that project, in that list. The Southern Connector, which is also known as the 22 extension. I'm not sure. It's been called a bunch of different names. It will basically connect the Highway 22 where it meets 501 and runs south. They make a loop around Conway and come across the Waccamaw River on the south end and basically connect Tournament Boulevard area to Bucksport. I know there's a lot of feelings about that, but it's a way across the Waccamaw that we need. We need a way across the Waccamaw. The second one is a brand new bridge that we don't know where it will go, but it'll go somewhere in the Conway vicinity. And that was our priority in Ride 4. In Ride 4, each city and the county goes into those meetings and says, here's the projects that we want. And we went in and we said, we need a bridge across the Waccamaw. And they said, where do you want it? We said, we don't care. We need a bridge across the Waccamaw. And they said, well, we assume you want it in the city limits. And we said, we don't even care if it's in the city limits. We need a bridge across the Waccamaw. And that's the seriousness that we're taking this. We saw what happened in 2018 when the Department of Transportation came in and said, we need to save this bridge. And to save the bridge, we need to close the bridge. That can never happen again.
Right.
When 501 bypass needs worked on, the bridge needs worked on, they cannot close that bridge. It cripples the entire county, not just Conway. The entire county is crippled if they shut that bridge down. So it cannot be shut down. So they've got to have another avenue to be able to have a way to cross the Waccamaw before they can work on that bridge in any way that shuts traffic down. So I don't know what the answer is, but if the transportation sales tax is to pass in November, there's enough funding in there for us to get 2 new bridges in Conway, or 2 new bridges over the Waccamaw in the Conway area. And that will be a game changer for our community. It'll be a way, and I don't know how the folks in Bucksport feel about this, but it seems sad to me that they can see their neighbors in Saukesty, but they can never talk to their neighbors in Saukesty. And those communities were much better connected in the 1800s when they had ferries that crossed the river. That's over. It just doesn't happen anymore. So I don't know if that's something that would want to be rekindled or not. But from an infrastructure standpoint, from a planning standpoint, we need to have better transportation networks and not just 2 ways over the Waccamaw River. That's what causes the traffic in the morning. That's what causes the traffic in the afternoon. It's bottlenecks, and we can eliminate those bottlenecks by having more crossings over the river.
So this proposed perimeter road that goes through Sand Ridge and so forth, that was so controversial. Will that come to a bridge point where you're going to build a bridge connected to that? Where?
I don't know. And that's certainly something that's been discussed. But we don't know where that bridge will come. There's got a lot of work that'll need to be done. The first thing to do is determine what environmental issues might allow the bridge to go one place or the other, and that all has to be funded in a study. The connector that will come in on the south end, that study's been going for 7 years and they still don't have a route. That's why it takes so long to build a bridge. It takes almost a decade of planning, even pick where the bridge is going to go, and then you got to get the permits for it, and that takes another 4 or 5 years, and then you got to build it. So we're going to be behind the 8 ball with the ability to cross we're behind it now. I mean, let's be honest. Every day there's an accident on the 501 somewhere that causes gridlock for an hour, and people can't sit in the car for 2 hours to commute every day in Horry County.
I just can't.
I lived in Atlanta. I hated it. It was 2 hours each way to work, and it was 18 miles. There's a reason I'm here, and we can't be recreating that sort of thing. So we need more transportation networks, and it will be an impact on communities, and we understand that. But the greater benefit has got to be the ability to travel from point A to point B. We've got to be able to see, to get to work, we got to be able to get to where we're going, and we can't be, handicapped by the bottlenecks every single day. And we've got to figure out a way around it.
Well, if they complete this perimeter road and it stops wherever it's going to stop, I don't know, and you don't have the bridge for another, even after this is completed, have the bridge for another 10, 15 years, you said, what will that do? I mean, that's going to create another bottleneck, because the only way to get across now is to drive back down to 501 bridge, right, and then go across.
That's right. I think the purpose of the perimeter road is not for the vacationer. It's not for someone trying to get to Myrtle Beach. It's for our local traffic. It's a local traffic network. Its ability to get from Main Street to 701 without having to get on 501.
Yeah, look, I'm just throwing that one in because
that's a great topic for another
for another time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So Adam, I do want to let's kind of get back to the plans for this storm, and I know that the city has a sandbag. They're offering sandbags and things like that so that residents can prepare. So I'm going to, of course, bring up in just a moment the City of Conway Facebook page, where you can get more information about what's happening with things that are going on surrounding the storm. But Adam, tell us a little bit about how the city has planned to help residents to prepare their homes for this storm.
So sandbagging is obviously something we hate to have to have what we have. It's it is the last resort for many people is to physically buttress their own homes, but it also is a way to keep the water out of your own home. And we understand that having to try to figure out the logistics of getting sand and finding sandbags and all that, it can be an overwhelming sort of thing. So we did this in Hurricane Florence. We did it actually. There was one other storm, and I can't remember, Dorian. I can't remember which one, but we've been bringing dump truck after dump truck after dump truck of sand, and we've been unloading it on Freeman Road. Freeman was one of those areas we purchased all the homes in Hurricane Floyd, and subsequently in Hurricane Matthew. We bought out all the homes there. So it is a road with no homes on it. And we put the sand there. We put sandbags there. We put shovels there. We've got the loader material there. So people can come get free sand, get free sandbags, fill them up, take them home. It is important to know how to use them. So watch a YouTube video on how to use those appropriately at your house. You don't want the bags so filled that they're like concrete bags of concrete, because then they don't work together. You need a little bit of room to be able to kind of stack and push them into each other. And basically you're building a wall of sand around your home or around your doorways to keep the water from coming in. What I would tell you is if you had water in your home, under your home, or near your home in any of the recent flood events, then you should expect to have water in your home in this one. That doesn't mean you will, but you should prepare for the fact that you might. So if it's your doorways that need to be sandbagged, then sandbag your doorways. If it's other things that you need to do those things to be prepared. We are taking those precautions ourselves. We're sandbagging our lift stations. We're making sure that our servers are working, that our generators are working. If we're doing that, then you should be doing the same thing. If you've got a propane tank at your house that you use for fuel in your house, make sure it's tied to something so those things float. The last thing you want to do is have to chase your propane tank 10 miles away down the river, because once those things are expensive, and they may be what keeps you running when the storm hits. So tie those to something that isn't going to float away, and give it a little bit of room so it doesn't go underwater. And it just put your stuff away. If you've got things in your yard you don't want to lose, put them in a shed, put them under your house, put them somewhere where they're not going to float away or blow away. Patio umbrellas look great. They do a great job shading it, but they are also like a missile floating through the air in a high wind event. You don't want them going through your neighbor's windows either. So do the things that you can do to batten down everything that needs to be done in your yard and your house. And that will not only protect your stuff, but it'll protect your things from your neighbor's things flying through the air too, if everybody pitches in. We've canceled garbage for tomorrow. So don't put your garbage out tonight, because that stuff gets the first big gust of wind, the garbage can blows over, then all your garbage is all over your neighborhood. And then we've all got to pick it up, and that's bad too. There you go. That's our Facebook page, April.
Yes.
We have a lot of different resources we use, but this is the one we use most. Everything is updated as soon as we know something, we push it to this format. There's no way to be 100% transparent in government. You don't want to know everything we know, but everything we know that we can, we put it here as quickly as we can, so that the community knows everything that we can give you, all the tools necessary to be able to fight this thing. Don't read the comments. just only post nice things about us. We're really nice people, and we have feelings too. There you go.
Yes, and yeah. Go ahead, Brother Adam.
Yeah, so Adam, these retention ponds, I'm getting a little scary now because you're getting in my area here now. But these retention ponds now, you're saying to expect them to overflow. If in a little community, and you got a retention pond that's right in the back step, so to speak.
Yeah.
You expect them to overflow. I mean, and get into your house.
No, I won't say that. If water's not supposed to be there, and you've seen it, then expect it to be back there again. Retention ponds are built to withstand storm events. They're not able to be built to withstand a 1,000-year event. So if we get 30 inches of rain in 3 days, there is nothing that can be built anywhere to withstand that. We live in an area that is not meant to withstand that amount of rain, and yet we live here knowing that we might get it. So there are some things we cannot be prepared for. But I will tell you this: after Hurricane Florence, or during Hurricane Florence, with two exceptions, the only neighborhoods that had water in them were built prior to us having stormwater standards. The neighborhoods that were built more recently were built and designed to not flood. So if there's a solace I can give you, if you live in a newer home, it's probably okay, depending on where it is and depending on its history. Because newer homes are built, newer communities are built so they don't flood. I know people don't like to hear that. They don't believe it, but it's true. They're built better ways. Yeah, engineering's better. The standards are better. Our regulations are so much more stringent today than they were like 2 years ago, than they were 10 years ago, certainly than they were 30 years ago. Or if your house was built in the 60s, that's 60 years ago. There were no standards 60 years ago. If you live in a community with no retention ponds, where's your water going?
That's right. Yeah. Adams, I've seen some huge ditches all around, just in Conway. Deep ditches, as far as from my perspective anyway. It seems to me that could be a mitigation right there for at least 5 inches of rain, maybe 10. If you look along 4th Avenue, and then right before you go across the bridge, 4th Avenue by the meat market.
Yep.
There's a huge ditch back there.
There is. And it ties into the wetlands that run along New Road. Yeah, that all.
Right.
A lot of folks like to pipe their ditches, but if you think about how much capacity you lose by piping your ditch, an open ditch may be ugly, but it holds a lot more water than the pipe ditch. So open ditches are a great way to hold water and let water flow where it's supposed to go. They're not the best way, but they're a good way, and they're certainly better than others. Pipes get water going fast. Ditches get more water going slow. They both function well. Some function better than others.
Yeah,
Well, Adam, I tell you, you've given us a lot of information tonight.
You want 3 more hours? We can go. Let's do it.
You know what? But it's fascinating. And Brother Edward, I think
the rain doesn't catch you first. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I think this is, just Adam, you're right. You could talk on this subject forever, and it's fascinating. And when you try to tie in all of the ecological things and environmental things that actually impact, how you all prepare the infrastructures around the city. It really is intriguing. And, we don't even think about the fact that we are truly a river town. We hear it, but we're truly a river town. And when you were talking earlier about crab tree and, all these other canals, I was thinking, it would have been, if we had an aerial map of the topography that we could see, how these rivers flow all around our city, I think people would just be astounded to actually see how I think they're snaking all around our city and in the residential areas. And so it would make a lot of sense if people were able to see something like that. But the information you've given us is fantastic, and just helping us to manage our expectations as far as what the city is prepared to do to help mitigate the flooding, as Brother Edward mentioned earlier, but also what we can expect from this storm. So like you said, people just need to watch their trusted weather sources. Go to the National Hurricane Center or Weather Center. If you want to, see the maps from there, I typically will click on a map if I see that, and then just prepare in the most common ways that we prepare. I know that the shelves are probably bare right now. Is there any threat to our water system? Because I know people run out and they buy tons and tons of bottled water. Do you anticipate any threat to our water system?
No, I do not. And if you think about the things that have been done, and I forgot about this, if you look at the ash ponds around Lake Busby, where Santee Cooper did all that remediation work, there was a risk during Florence if the river water had gotten into those ash ponds that it could have contaminated the water source. Those have all been remediated now. That risk is gone. So it's very unlikely that our water sources would ever be contaminated. And we get our water from Grand Strand Water and Sewer like just about everybody else in the county does. And they are really good at what they do. So if there's, I will never say there's never, but I'll say there's very, very little chance of that. And I told City Council this last night, and it bears repeating. Only trust the sources of information that you should trust. And I realize nobody trusts government, but in a storm event, I live in Conway. My wife and kids live in Conway. I'm telling them the same thing I'm telling you. I'm telling my neighbors the same thing I'm telling you. And there's not any sort of conspiracy behind the scenes. We want to protect our houses just like you want to protect your houses. I want to go out to eat in Conway tomorrow, just like y'all want to go out to eat in Conway tomorrow. So we're not doing anything here that is alternative motives. We want the same thing you want here. So we're doing everything we can to make us hit the ground in the same situation we were after the storm that we were before the storm. So trust us when we give you the information, because that's our goal, is to do that. I have one very important thing that I have not yet said, and it 3 times today already, we had vehicles drive through high water and get in a ditch. If you see water that's standing, do not try to drive through it. You don't know where the edge of the road is. And it's the ditches that you saw, Mr. McQueen, people saw them a lot closer today. We had 3 cars, and the hurricane doesn't even hit till tomorrow. We had an outer band. That's all we really have, are outer bands today. So consider we had almost 4 inches of rain at our public safety building today, and all we have is the outer band. So tomorrow we've got a lot of fun to come through. Do not drive unless you got to drive. If you got to go to the store, it's not raining right now, go right now. I hope they got bread. But
right.
eat spaghetti.
There you go. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really do appreciate it. And we know that our guests who are watching appreciate it. Everybody's probably out and about at the grocery stores now trying to pick up little last minute items. But, this broadcast will be available for playback on Facebook, on our World Community Magazine page, and various pages where this is shared on YouTube and also on WCMagazine.net. So, we will definitely encourage people to watch the rebroadcast, and also to go to the City of Conway's Facebook page for updates on what's happening around the city. Thank you all for posting the information about the closures as far as the, the facilities, the garbage and all that other good stuff. Please go to those sources to find out that information, everyone, so that you'll be prepared for that. And so, again, thank you so much. And we really do appreciate the work you all are doing. We hope that you and your crews remain safe through this storm, and hopefully we won't get hit too bad. Like you said, maybe it'll slow down, deplete itself, and keep on, doing whatever out to sea. Hopefully it won't, we won't get too much of it, but at least we're better prepared from the standpoint of understanding what the city can and is doing to make sure that, we don't have any really, like Brother Edward said earlier, disastrous occurrences around the city. So thank you so much for all that you do.
We're here to help. If there's anything that does come up, please let us know. We'll be there as soon as we can.
Absolutely, Brother Edward. You have anything to
Mr. McQueen in the comments there. We're working on that. We'll get you.
Yeah, did we talk about phone numbers? Anything? Any phones?
He's just driving everybody to the City of Conway Facebook page.
We have not opened a helpline yet. If we need to open one, we'll put it on the Facebook page for questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you, man.
Thank you all very much. Thank you again for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for accepting it.
Yeah. So thank you. And we appreciate everyone watching tonight. Take this information. Spread the word, use it wisely. Go to the City of Conway Facebook page to make sure you get the updates through the storm. And we thank everyone for watching tonight. Please remain safe. Like Adam says, do not go out unless you absolutely have to, and just hunker down. Yeah, don't drive through
a flooded highway. Okay, don't think you're gonna make it. I mean that's just man's nature.
We don't want to
do it. It's not that. Right. But anyway, thanks everyone. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook.